In 1968, 6,000 sheep died instantly in the Utah desert. But what was truly horrifying was what happened to the American soldiers stationed in that same area. That morning in the barren lands of Skull Valley, Shepherd Michael Thompson went out as usual to graze his flock. As the sun was just rising, he heard the sounds of aircraft coming from Dugway Proving Ground military base 40 kilometers away. These sounds had become familiar to him. But that day, something was different. America's secret government operations was about to carry out one of history's darkest experiments that morning. Thompson saw half his flock writhing on the ground at midday. The sheep were foaming at the mouth, struggling to breathe, their eyes bloodshot. Within a few hours, all 6,000 sheep were dead. Thompson panicked and called veterinarian Dr. Austin Clark. "Doctor, something terrible is happening here. My sheep are dying en masse." Dr. Clark rushed over. When he saw the scene, he was shocked. This wasn't from pesticides. The symptoms indicated much more serious poisoning. Foaming, constricted pupils, muscle contractions. These were nerve gas symptoms. "Michael, get your family and get away from here. Now?" Clark shouted. What Thompson didn't know was that 40 kilometers away at Dugway Base, America's secret government operations had 47 soldiers about to share the dead fate. But the most horrifying part hadn't come yet. At Dugway Proving Ground, 25-year-old Specialist Sergeant Robert Bobby Miller had started his shift that morning as just another normal test day. This secret facility, built in the middle of the Utah desert, had become the center of chemical weapons experiment. Various chemical agents had been tested here since 1942. Bobby was part of 47 soldiers assigned to a project coded lock. They were told they were testing new generation pesticides. In reality, they were working with VX, the world's most lethal nerve gas. VX was a poison that could kill within minutes, even if just a drop touched the skin. "Miller," shouted Sergeant Williams, "are the tank preparations complete?" "Yes, Sergeant," Bobby replied, closing the file in his hand. The file had classified VX, neural agent, written on it. But Bobby thought it was just pesticide. That's what he had been taught. His friend, Private Tom Bradley, approached and whispered, "Bobby, these smells are bothering me. It seems like a very strong chemical odor." Miller shrugged. "The commanders said it was safe. Don't worry." 19-year-old Private Danny Rodriguez was curious, constantly asking questions. "Sergeant, why are we working without masks? We always wore masks in other chemical tests." Williams replied harshly, "Because this is just pesticide, Rodriguez. Stop overthinking." That morning there was a critical detail in the weather report. Wind direction would be different than predicted. Meteorology specialist Lieutenant Sarah Davidson was anxiously examining her report. "This wind change could affect the operation," she murmured. She sent the report to high command, but no one listened to her. America's secret government operations didn't yet know this detail would cost dozens of lives. This is where everything went wrong. That day at 10:47 a.m., an F-4 Phantom jet passed over Skull Valley. The order given to Pilot Major James Henderson was simple: spray the chemical in the tank at the designated coordinates and return to base. Henderson was an experienced pilot with 15 years of service, who had flown dozens of missions in Vietnam. "Control tower, I'm over the target," Henderson said into his microphone. "Roger, Phantom 7, begin operation." Henderson didn't know he was spraying 20 kilos of pure VX nerve gas. They told him it was concentrated pesticide that would be tested on agricultural area. The wind direction was different than expected, and the deadly cloud began drifting in an unexpected direction. The VX gas was supposed to fall in a specific area normally, but the wind carried it in a completely different direction. The gas cloud slowly drifted toward Dugway Base's personnel area. "Bombing complete, control tower," Henderson said. Heading home, Henderson didn't know that 6 kilometers below, Bobby Miller and his 46 friends were preparing for routine cleanup duty. America's secret government operations had now put its own soldiers at risk too. At the same time, Shepherd Thompson's sheep were also breathing the same gas. The difference was, the sheep had been left in the open area, while the soldiers thought they could take shelter in enclosed areas. They were wrong. What you're about to learn will truly shock you. When Miller and his friends went out to the field that afternoon, None of them wore protective masks. Their commanders had told them they were working in what they called a safe zone. The air was slightly breezy and there was a strange sharp smell. "It's a beautiful day," Miller said to Tom Bradley, with a smile. "Let's finish quickly so we can leave early." "Susan is making dinner tonight," Bradley nodded. "My wife made a cake too. You'll come over tonight." Private Danny Rodriguez was a young soldier, only now. "Sergeant Miller, this chemical smells really bad. It smells like burning." Miller patted his shoulder. "Don't worry, son, it's just pesticide. It'll pass soon." Private Johnson wrinkled his nose and added, "I've never smelled this odor before. It's really different." Sergeant Williams was organizing the group. "Hurry boys, clean the equipment. You'll all be with your families tonight." The first 30 minutes passed normally. The soldiers were cleaning tanks, hoses and other equipment. But after 15:30 VX gas concentration reached critical level. Rodriguez was the first to show symptoms. "Sergeant, my eyes are starting to water." Miller looked at him. Rodriguez's eyes were indeed reddening and tearing. "Maybe you have allergies," Miller said. But his own eyes were starting to water too. Bradley's hands began to tremble. "Boys, I'm feeling a bit strange." Johnson was looking around confused. "Sergeant, everything seems blurry." Neither knew they wouldn't be at Bradley's house tomorrow night, that Miller wouldn't have a romantic dinner with his wife Susan. America's secret government operations was killing them. "Wait a minute, don't miss this detail." The first serious symptoms began at 6:00 p.m. Miller's eyes began watering heavily. His hands started trembling uncontrollably. He felt difficulty breathing. His heart was beating like crazy. Rodriguez was in even worse condition. His stomach was writhing with nausea. Excessive sweating had begun. His pupils had constricted to pinpoints. The classic symptom of VX nerve gas. "Are you feeling unwell, boys?" asked Sergeant Williams. But he was also rubbing his eyes with his hands. Miller shook his head. "Just fatigue, Sergeant," he said. But he didn't know his nervous system was slowly collapsing. VX gas was blocking the acetylcholine esterase enzyme in nerve cells, cutting off communication between nerves. Bradley's nose began bleeding heavily. His eyes had become glassy. His speech was gradually becoming difficult. Boys, I think we need to go to the hospital." Private Johnson crouched on the ground. "My legs won't hold me. What's happening?" Sergeant Williams began to panic. All 47 soldiers were showing various symptoms. This wasn't normal pesticide exposure. This was something much more serious. Miller grabbed the phone and called his wife Susan. "Susan, I think I'm sick. Please call an ambulance." The panic in Susan's voice was palpable. "Bobby, what happened to you? Your voice sounds very strange." "I don't know, honey. My eyes can barely see." America's secret government operations had begun claiming its first victims. But no one yet knew this was a deliberate experiment. "You haven't seen the biggest scandal yet." At 7:45 p.m., Bradley collapsed to the ground. His muscles were contracting uncontrollably. Foam was coming from his mouth. His eyes had rolled back. His body was having spasms. Miller ran to help him, but he too lost his balance. Rodriguez was writhing on the ground. "I can't breathe. My God, I can't breathe," he was screaming. His face was turning blue. Blood was seeping from Johnson's eyes. He was trying to speak but could only make incomprehensible sounds. "Doctor, call a doctor." "Ambulance now," Williams shouted. But by then the other soldiers in the barracks were also showing similar symptoms. The barracks had turned into a scene from hell. 38 of the 47 soldiers were writhing on the ground, while the remaining 9 were trying to stay standing. Some were unconscious, others were screaming. Private Wilson was trying to stand by holding onto the wall. "Sergeant, I think we're dying. This isn't pesticide." Sergeant Martinez was shouting at Williams. "What kind of pesticide is this? Men are dying here." Williams was also in panic. In his 20-year military career, he had never seen anything like this. "I don't know, they told me it was just pesticide too." Miller's last clear memory was ambulance sirens, and his wife Susan's frantic screams to get to the hospital. She was crying on the phone. "Bobby, please, talk to me, Bobby." But Miller could no longer speak. VX nerve gas had taken control of his central nervous system. America's secret government operations had begun killing its own children. You won't believe what the truth really was. Dr. Patricia Hayes was Dugway's chief physician. She had been working here for 15 years, seeing various chemical exposure cases, but the group of 38 soldiers brought to the emergency room at midnight was one of the most severe cases she had ever seen in her life. The symptoms were horrifying: uncontrolled contractions, excessive sweating, pupils constricted to pinpoints, uncontrollable muscle spasms, foaming, loss of consciousness. Dr. Hayes asked while standing by Miller's bedside, "Soldier, what type of pesticide did you come into contact with?" Miller's eyes were glassy. His speech had become difficult. "I don't know, doctor. They just told us we were just going to do cleanup." Rodriguez could no longer speak at all. Only strange, gurgling sounds came from his mouth. Nurse Janet Thompson was trying to take his pulse. "Doctor, his pulse is at 180 per minute and irregular." Bradley's condition was even more serious. He was constantly having seizures, consciousness coming and going. His wife Mary had rushed to the hospital, crying and asking, "Doctor, what happened to my husband? He was fine this morning." Dr. Hayes couldn't answer. She had only read about these symptoms in medical books before. "Nerve gas poisoning. Nurse Thompson, I need blood work immediately. Cholinesterase levels, liver enzymes, complete blood count, and get me Dugway's chemical inventory list." The nurse looked confused. "Doctor, but they said it was pesticide." A cold feeling arose in Dr. Hayes's heart. "This isn't pesticide, Thompson. This is something much more dangerous." Private Johnson's condition was also worsening. His parents were rushing from San Diego. His father was crying on the phone asking, "Doctor, will our son die?" Dr. Hayes didn't know what to say. What had America's secret government operations done to these soldiers? That night when Hayes examined the laboratory results, she was shocked. Blood tests showed cholinesterase levels near zero. This was clear evidence of severe nerve gas exposure. "This is impossible," she murmured to Nurse Thompson. "They said it was pesticide." Nurse Thompson was going through files. "Doctor, there's something strange here. I see notes about VX nerve gas in the inventory records." Dr. Hayes's face turned white. VX gas. It was one of the world's most lethal chemical weapons. "Thompson, don't let anyone see these records. Put them in the safe immediately." But it was too late. America's secret government operations had been caught. She rushed to the computer and prepared a detailed report for High Command. Her writing included these sentences: 38 soldiers have experienced severe nerve gas exposure. Blood values are at critical levels. Emergency detoxification protocol and special treatment are required. These cases must be transferred to a military medical center. Dr. Hayes sent her report at 3. The response that would come at 7 a.m. would cause her to experience the biggest shock of her life. Meanwhile, Private Rodriguez's condition had worsened further. His family was trying to come from El Paso, but they had already lost their child. Rodriguez's mother Maria was crying on the phone. "Doctor, mi hijo va a morir. Doctor, will my son die?" Dr. Hayes replied in Spanish, "Estamos haciendo todo lo posible. We're doing everything we can." But she knew that with VX nerve gas exposure, their chances were very slim. The response that came at 7:15 a.m. caused Dr. Hayes to experience the biggest shock of her life. The order from High Command was to immediately destroy all medical records on national security grounds. The soldiers in question will not be informed about any chemical agent they were exposed to. All case reports, laboratory results, and medical records will be immediately destroyed. This order is not open to discussion. The order was signed by Colonel Richard Stone. Dr. Hayes felt her hands trembling as she grabbed the phone. "Colonel Stone, these soldiers were exposed to lethal nerve gas. They have the right to know. Their families should learn the truth." The coldness in Stone's voice chilled to the bone. "Dr. Hayes, this conversation never happened. And the report you mentioned was never written. I assume you understand this matter. But Colonel, Private Rodriguez is dying. At least 12 soldiers are in critical condition. From food poisoning," Stone said in an ice-cold voice. "That's what will be written in the official report. There's no other explanation. This isn't ethical. I swore to protect these people." Stone's voice took on a threatening tone. "Dr. Hayes, you're a soldier too. You know the chain of command. You will implement these instructions to the letter or your career ends here." After hanging up, Dr. Hayes slumped at her desk. America's secret government operations was now trying to silence its own doctors too. That afternoon, Private Rodriguez died. His family would never learn the truth. His official report stated, sudden heart failure. When Miller and the other 35 soldiers too had died along with Rodriguez, were discharged from the hospital, the story they were told was simple. They had suffered from mass food poisoning. That's what was written in their military files. Hayes was helplessly forced to lie to the soldiers. Boys, you were poisoned by bad canned food. Be more careful from now on. Bradley asked suspiciously, Doctor, but these symptoms didn't seem like food poisoning. I've had food poisoning before. Hayes lied with her heart breaking. Sometimes severe food poisoning can show such symptoms. Miller was also giving suspicious looks. Doctor, why were we all affected at the same time? And why was it so severe? It must have been a very bad batch of food. The bacteria were strong. Private Johnson really pushed it. Doctor, I had worked in previous chemical exposures. These symptoms are very similar. Dr. Hayes wanted to cry now. Johnson, please don't worry about these things. What matters is that you get better. But the truth was very different. America's secret government operations had poisoned its own soldiers with VX nerve gas, and was determined to hide it. When Miller returned home, his 22-year-old wife Susan couldn't recognize him. The man was constantly trembling, having nightmares at night, frequently experiencing memory loss. Bobby, you don't talk to me like before anymore, Susan said one evening, trying to hug him in the kitchen. Miller averted his eyes from Susan. I don't have much to say, honey, he whispered. But the truth was, he couldn't. Every time he remembered, his tongue was tied, as if someone was silencing him. Bradley's condition was much worse. He had to constantly use a wheelchair, had difficulty speaking. His wife Mary had left home saying she couldn't take care of him. But Miller's story wasn't alone. America's secret government operations was systematically poisoning thousands of soldiers across the country during the same period. At Fort Detrick, Maryland, Specialist Sergeant David Martinez was exposed to anthrax spores. After getting what they called a seasonal flu shot, his lungs slowly began to rot. Doctors diagnosed him with chronic bronchitis. At Edgewood Arsenal, Maryland, thousands of soldiers were experimented on with LSD and other nerve gases. They gave Sergeant Michael O'Connor what they called new type vitamin supplement. 3 days later, he completely lost his perception of reality. Started constantly having hallucinations. In phone conversations with family, he would say, "The walls are moving, people are following me." At Pine Bluff Arsenal, Arkansas, Private James Washington participated in biological weapon experiments. What he thought was a flu prevention vaccine was actually a modified strain of deadly anthrax bacteria. Now rot had begun in his lung. At Deseret Test Center, Utah, another facility near Dugway, Sergeant Robert Kim was exposed to a different formulation of VX. They called it insect repellent spray test. Kim was now constantly having seizures. His family couldn't recognize him. At every facility, America's secret government operations was telling the same lies, applying the same cover-up tactics. Food poisoning, flu, allergic reaction, stress, accident. The truth was, at least 7,000 American soldiers had been exposed to lethal chemical and biological agents. Without their knowledge, in the summer of 1969, 28 soldiers from Lot 16 in addition to Miller began experiencing unexplainable neurological disorders. Hayes had to make the decision to break her silence. Bradley had been condemned to a wheelchair. At 25, he looked like an 80-year-old man. He was constantly drooling. His speech was impaired. After his wife Mary left him, he tried to get care at VA hospital. Miller's tremor seizures had now become daily. Sometimes he would sit motionless for hours, staring blankly at the wall. Susan tried to talk to him, but Miller acted as if he was in another dimension. Private Johnson was in a similar condition. His family lived in San Diego, and came to visit him every month. His parents couldn't bear to see their son living like this. Johnson's father had called Dr. Hayes, and asked, "Doctor, what really happened to our son? Is this really food poisoning?" Hayes had to lie with her heart breaking. "Mr. Johnson, I'm sorry, but there's no other explanation." But she couldn't take it anymore. She couldn't sleep at night, and during the day she was alone with her conscience. Either shut up and be an accomplice, or speak up and end your career.
In February 1970, Dr. Hayes made her decision. She secretly wrote a letter to Senator Frank Church, one of the rare senators conducting investigations against the intelligence community at the time. In her letter she wrote, "Dear Senator Church, during my 18 years of service at Dugway Proving Ground, I have observed horrific experiments conducted on our own soldiers. Dozens of soldiers exposed to VX nerve gas are now suffering lifelong disability. Our military is systematically hiding this and lying to families. These soldiers were used as guinea pigs. Please investigate this matter." The night she secretly mailed the letter, Dr. Hayes noticed a black sedan following her on her way home. America's secret government operations had begun putting whistleblowers under surveillance too. In the following car were CIA agent Robert Kane and FBI agent William Foster. Kane said to Foster, "This doctor could cause trouble. We need to put pressure on her." The next day when Dr. Hayes came to the hospital, she found an anonymous note on her desk. "Think about your family, Patricia." Senator Frank Church experienced a great shock when he received the letter. The letter confirmed what he had been suspicious of for years. The American intelligence community was conducting experiments on its own people. He immediately called CIA Director Richard Helms on his private line. "Dick, what's happening at Dugway Proving Ground? I have very serious allegations." He could feel the tension in Helms' voice. "Frank, I can't discuss this matter on open lines. But I can say this. National security requirements sometimes require painful sacrifices." Church's blood froze. "You're talking about our own soldiers, Dick. American citizens." "Frank," Helms said, taking a deep breath, "this conversation never happened. And if you continue investigating these matters, I should remind you that some secrets could be harmful to you too." After hanging up, Church sat at his desk for a long time. How deep did America's secret government operations reach? And how powerful was it? That night on his way home, Church noticed he was also being followed by the same black sedan. The same CIA agent Kane was in the car. Kane was talking to someone else on the phone. "The senator knows too. We need to keep the situation under control," Church told his wife Bethine at home. "Bethine, this thing is bigger than we thought. The whole system is dirty." Bethine squeezed her husband's hand. "Frank, you're doing the right thing. But be careful." Church couldn't sleep that night. The next day he would make his definitive decision. Either he would pursue this matter, or quietly ignore it. When he established the Church Committee in 1975, Senator Church's first goal was to completely expose America's secret government operations chemical weapons experiment. Bobby Miller was 32 years old at the time, but looked like a 70-year-old man. He constantly used a wheelchair and had difficulty speaking. His wife Susan had left him unable to bear it. "Bobby, I still love you, but this man isn't you anymore." When the Church Committee listened to Miller, the silence in the hall was ear-piercing. Television cameras were rolling. All of America was watching. We didn't know what was happening." Miller spoke with difficulty. "They just told us we would be cleaning pesticide."
Then hell began. Committee member Senator Walter Mondale leaned forward and asked, "So what's your condition now, Mr. Miller? How is your daily life?" Miller's eyes filled with tears. "I feel like I'm dying every day, Senator. My body doesn't belong to me anymore. I can't sleep at night. I constantly remember that day." Bradley also testified. Sitting in his wheelchair, he had difficulty speaking, so he presented his testimony largely in writing. "They used us as guinea pigs. I considered being an American soldier a great honor. Now I can't trust my own army. My wife left me. I can't find work. I have no quality of life." Crying sounds rose in the hall. America's secret government operations had poisoned its own children. The picture that emerged from the Church Committee's investigation was horrifying. Thousands of American soldiers had been exposed to chemical and biological experiments without their knowledge. Thousands of soldiers had suffered permanent damage. Of the 34 soldiers had died directly as a result of these experiments. Dr. Hayes also testified before the committee. She spoke through tears. "I betrayed my Hippocratic oath. I couldn't protect these soldiers. I was forced to lie to them. These soldiers were exposed to lethal nerve gas, and I told them it was food poisoning." For each case, America's secret government operations had systematically used the same lies: food poisoning, flu, allergic reaction, stress-related illness, accidental exposure. In 1978, 35-year-old Miller was on his deathbed due to multiple organ failure. Only Dr. Hayes was in the hospital room. His wife Susan hadn't come. His family also stayed away. "Doctor," Miller whispered, tears streaming from his eyes. "Will people know? Will they finally learn what they did to us?" Dr. Hayes squeezed his hand. "I promise you, Bobby. Now everyone knows the truth. After the church committee, they have nothing left to hide." Miller smiled weakly. "I just wanted to serve my country. I wanted to be a good soldier." "You were a wonderful soldier, Bobby. And you were a wonderful person." As Miller took his last breath, he murmured these words. "Tell Rodriguez, Bradley, we weren't alone." America's secret government operations had buried another victim. More than 50 people attended Bobby Miller's funeral. After the church committee, his story was known. So media and civil society representatives also came. Susan Miller had these words inscribed on her ex-husband's gravestone. "Robert Bobby Miller, 1943-1978, fought for his country, killed by his country." In his last interview in 2019 at age 89, Dr. Hayes said, "Even after 50 years, I can't forget those soldiers' faces. America's secret government operations betrayed them. And I must say this, even today there are thousands of soldiers like them, who don't know exactly what happened to them. So now you know this truth. What will you do next?" America's secret government operations didn't just remain in the past. Even today, it continues in different forms. Soldiers returning from Iraq and Afghanistan are experiencing unexplained illnesses, similar to Gulf War syndrome. Secret vaccine experiments continue at different bases, with different formulations. Chemical exposure cases are still being reported as post-traumatic stress disorder. Thousands of similar documents are still hidden in the Pentagon's classified archives. Dr. Hayes died in 2020 at age 90. Her last words were, "I kept my promise to Bob." Now everyone knows the truth. But do we really know? The church committee exposed thousands of documents, but there are still tens of thousands of secret files in the Pentagon's archives. Who knows how many more stories of Bobby Miller's, Rodriguez, Bradley's are hidden in America's secret government operations steel safes. And you, after learning this truth, will you remain silent? Or will you fight to ensure Bobby Miller's story is not forgotten?